So this response is taking a little longer than I was expecting it to. This will be part 2, where I address his questions 5 through 7. So I hope you enjoy the rest of my rebuttal, and again, I look forward to hearing your responses. His 5th question basically says, because you can't prove anything from the previous questions that we've been talking about, why don't you think that your belief is a religion? And there's 2 things that I'd like to address here. First, we can prove it. The fact that you haven't done the research on it, and by research I don't mean watch a Kent Hovind video, I mean take like an astrophysics course, or like learn something, go to a library, and look up all the theories that you're dismissing out of hand. Just because you haven't done the research for it doesn't mean that there's no evidence. Doesn't mean there's no evidence for it. And doesn't mean that it's unproven. There is evidence for it. There's a vast array of evidence for all of the theories that you are dismissing here. Open a book, man. That's pretty much all I can say. And the reason why it's not a religious belief is pretty simple as well. It's subject to change if the evidence that we've come across differs in any way. It's not dogmatic at all. This is what we believe because this is where the evidence points. And there's no reason for atheists to think that this must be so. It's just convenient that it is so, because this is how the universe is as we have come to know it thus far. If it's not that, if it turns out that we're wrong on that, I doubt you're going to have anybody having any problem at all by saying, well, that's wrong. In the same way that we now think that the whole notion of phlogiston is wrong as an explanation for why things burn. It's just it turned out to be wrong. Now we don't think that anymore. If it turns out that the universe really is some sort of steady state universe like Einstein once thought, instead of the Big Bang model that we're using at this point in time, it's not a threat to anybody's worldview, so to speak. It's not a threat to atheism in any way, and it's not a threat to this, and as such, it's not a religious belief. It's compatible with religious beliefs, or it better be, because it's the way the world is. For question 6, he asks, can you predict the future, basically, and the idea that if we don't have an answer, I haven't answered any of the questions with "we don't know yet," or that we'll find out in the future. But even if we did, he asks, even if I did, he said, does this contradict the humanist position? If the only things that exist are what you can sense with your 5 senses. First of all, I'm not sure that humanism has anything to do with what we're talking about here. Humanism and empiricism aren't synonymous. Those are 2 completely different ideas. One is having to do with humanity and our place in the world, and the other having to do with how we can know things about the world. It's an epistemological viewpoint. And I don't think that anybody's saying that the only things that exist are what we can sense with our 5 senses, but rather the only things that we can come to know are those things that we can interact with in some way with our 5 senses. And if you have proof of something outside of that, then excellent, demonstrate it. But until then, we're operating under the assumption that the world operates naturalistically. So I think your question has some fundamental false premises before we can really get to the meat of what you're trying to get at. But the question that you ask of, can you predict the future? The answer to that is yes. We make predictions about the future all the time. From, I think that this is going to taste like vanilla ice cream because it says vanilla ice cream on it, on the package, or I think that the next step I take is going to be on solid ground because it looks solid. Those are predictions about the future because we extrapolate from the past. I mean, they're inductive arguments, so they're not logically valid in a deductive fashion, but they're inductive arguments. So, and they're inductive ways of operating through with the relation to the world, which is what we do every day, all the time. So when you ask, can you predict the future, it seems like a ridiculous question, because we are predicting the future, and we have no issues with that. For question number 7, he asks for empirical proof of evolution, and I'm not really sure what he's looking for here, since it seems to me that the fact that things change over time has got to be pretty unquestionable at this point in time. I mean, even creationists will agree that things change over time with the whole microevolution, macroevolution distinction that they try to make. So, I mean, we can give you off the cuff, the fact that things change over time is easy to demonstrate. Look at freaking the development of dogs, where you go from wolves to chihuahuas, and Great Danes, like the disparity between those two things. So that sort of evolution is easy to demonstrate, and I mean, when you have stuff like nylon eating bacteria, when nylon was completely synthetic, and it didn't exist in nature until 60 years ago, sort of demonstrates that evolution can occur in species. I mean, it occurs regularly, frequently. So, I mean, if you're looking for evidence that one species changes into another, the best that I can think of probably is, aside from, like, you know, the various documented evidences for whale evolution or that sort of thing, human chromosome number 2 is a great illustration of where of evidence for human evolution from an ape-like ancestor, where you have a fusion of 2 different chromosome pairs, which is something that the other great apes don't have. Thus, our 46 chromosomes to their 48. So, again, it really depends on what you're looking for here, and what you think evolution means. I have a feeling that your understanding of evolution is probably as shoddy as your understanding of astrophysics and cosmology, so I'm not going to spend any more time on that. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hope that I'll hear from somebody soon. Take care, YouTube.